All right, here we go. So we're going to finish up our lesson from Friday, which was how to find slope from a graph. We were on the back of the notes page from Friday. This is number 5. So we're going to finish those up. Make sure that we know how to find the slope from a graph. Talk about the different special circumstances. And then we're going to move on how to find slope without a graph. All right, so this is number 5 on the back of the notes from Friday. All right, this example, we learned on Friday that we start on the left-hand side of the equation and we move towards the right. So it's just like reading from left to right. We start on this side. The first point we come to is up here, and we want to move to this one. So we do our rise and our run when we're given a graph. From this example, we're going to go down 1, 2. Whew, that's not a good line. Let me do that again. Down 1, 2, run 1. Down 2 is represented by a -2, run 1 is a +1. Down 1, 2, run 1. Down 1, 2, run 1. Down 1, 2, run 1. So the rise was down 2 would be -2, run 1, +1. -2 divided by 1 is simplified to -2 divided by 1 is just -2. Now we find our y-intercept, which is our b. On your paper, it's listed as just b, so we follow the y-axis up and see where the red line intersects, and it does right here at the point +1. This is 0, 0, this is +1. Now we're ready to take these two values and plug them in to our slope-intercept form of equation, which is y equals mx plus b. The value of m and the value of b that we just found go here. So the equation of this line would be y equals m is a -2, x, instead of plus b, we're going to put +1 from the values we found. So the slope of this line is -2. The equation for this line is y equals -2x plus 1 because it crosses at +1 on the y-axis and the slope was -2. Let's do another one, number 6. This one also is a downhill, so we know it's going to be a negative slope. So we start on the left-hand side and we want to get to this point. In this case, we're going to go down 2, right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Down 1, 2, right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Down 1, 2, right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Down 2 is -2, right 5 is +5. So the slope of this one is -2 over 5. Can we simplify -2 over 5? Is there any number that will go into either one of those that will simplify it? No, so it's in simplest form, and we never want to make it a decimal. Always a whole number or a fraction. Now we find b. We follow the y-axis up, and it crosses right here. What point is that? 0. Now we want to plug into our formula, y equals mx plus b. Y equals m was -2/5, x, and our plus b would be +0. Can we simplify anything? Think about how we would write it in algebra. Would we ever write +0? Because that's just nothing, right? So our equation would be -2/5 x. Y equals -2/5 x would be the actual answer. We don't need the +0. All right. With that being said, if I give you the equation y equals -2/5 x and ask you what is the y-intercept, you'd say, well, Ms. Z, there's no +3 or +5 or -2 out here. You would need to already know, well, that means that there's a +0 out here. It's kind of part of our invisible math that we've been talking about. We don't have a number out here, but we know there's a +0 because in algebra you wouldn't write that. So you would say the y-intercept is 0, 0. That means it goes through 0, 0. Okay? Kind of like when we have a 1x. We don't write it as 1x in algebra. We write it how? As just an x. Okay? All right, so when you don't have a plus a number or minus a number, you know that means it goes through 0, 0. There's a +0 there. Okay? Let's do another one. Here's a special case. Starting on the far left, we're going to do our rise and our run. We rise, none, 0, good. We run, 1, 2, 3. Rise 0, run 1, 2, 3. Rise 0, run 1, 2, 3. So rise 0, run 3. All right, in your calculator, take out your calculator. And I want you to type, clear everything out. But you're going to do 0 divided by 3. And hit enter. And what is 0 divided by 3?
0.
This one equals 0. Very important that you see that in your calculator. We're going to look at the other one in just a second. All right, now we want to find our b, our y-intercept. So find your y-axis, follow it up, and it crosses at what number? -5. So our equation would be y equals, what's our slope? 0x minus 5. Okay? If you need your formula, it's y equals mx plus b. So we got 0 for m and -5 for b. Now we need to simplify it. We need to clean it up. What part can we clean up? The 0. What's the 0 times x going to give us? Just 0. So now we have y equals 0 minus 5. Can we still simplify even further? Yeah. What is 0 minus 5? -5. So the equation for this line is y equals -5. All right, let's talk about that. Well, first of all, we said the slope was 0. We put in our calculator, rise 0, run 3, gave us a slope of 0. Do you remember Mr. Slope? His mouth was the 0 slope. Is this line a horizontal line? 0 slope. Yeah, so that part's right. Now let's look at the equation. Notice there's only the letter y in it. Well, that means it must cross the y at -5. Does it cross the y at -5? Yes. There's no x in this equation. Let's look at the x-axis. Does the red line ever cross your x-axis? No. That's why there's no x in our equation. So if it's a horizontal line, we know horizontal lines have 0 slope because of Mr. Slope. We remember that. And there's no x because it never crosses the x-axis. It only crosses the y at -5. So for any horizontal line, it's always going to be a y equals whatever number it crosses the y at. Okay? Let's do another one. Example 8. We're going to find our slope, rise and run. Go ahead and write that. See if you can do that one by yourself. And find your b. Give everyone a chance to find it, please. If you're watching the video, go ahead and do number 8. I'm missing Katie. Ethan's here. Zach. Emily. Got it. Thank you. All right, here we go. We're starting on the left side of our graph. Here's the first point. Down 1, right 1. So that'd be -1, +1. Down 1, right 1. Down 1, right 1. Down 1, right 1. Down 1, -1, right 1, +1. Simplify. What's -1 divided by +1? -1. Now we find our y-intercept. Follow your y-axis up, and it crosses at +6. All right, now we're ready to write our equation. Brando, you got a question?
Why would it be -1 if the slope is this height?
Because you went down instead of up. This one has a negative slope because it's a downhill from left to right. All right, we're ready for our equation. Y equals mx plus b. So our m is going to be -1x, and our b would be +6. We need to clean that up. Remember, always think about our algebra rules. How do we write -1x in algebra? Yeah, so the final answer should be y equals -x plus 6. That is the equation of this red line. The slope is -1, and it crosses the y-intercept at +6. All right, last example, number 9, and this is our other special case. What type of line do we have here? Vertical. Up and down. Vertical. All right, so for this one, we're going to find our rise and our run. We start on the left and we move to the right. And then we may notice that the points are all in a row, so we're not sure which one we're going to move. I would just start at the bottom one. We're going to rise 1, 2, 3, run 0. Rise 1, 2, 3, run 0. Rise 3, run 0. 3 over 0. Okay, go ahead and take out your calculator. Let's try that one. Because we did earlier one that was similar, but this one's different. Clear it out and do 3 divided by 0 and press enter. See what it tells you. It says divided by 0, divide by 0 error. Divide by 0 error. This tells you you're not ever allowed to divide any number by 0. It's impossible. It gives you an error because it can't be done. You can't divide anything into 0 groups. Okay? So when you see this on your paper, it tells you, oh, that doesn't mean that the answer is 0. It means that number can't be divided into 0. Okay? So we talked about Mr. Slope. Remember this part of the graph was his nose. And what did we say the value of his nose was? Undefined. Remember his eyes? The mouth was the 0. This was what part? Undefined. So the slope of this line is undefined. Any vertical line has an undefined slope. You can't ride your bike up a wall. We still need to find our B. Find the y-axis, follow it up. And where does it intersect at? It doesn't, because the y-intercept does not exist. This line is parallel to your y-axis, so they will never intersect. So there is no y-intercept. There is no B. So now we're ready to write our equation y equals mx plus b. But wait, we don't have a slope, and we don't have a y-intercept. So let's see, this line, this red line, what does it cross? It crosses the x-axis at -6. So it crosses the x at -6. Does it cross the y-axis? Does it cross this one? So there's no y in our equation. There's only an x because it crosses the x-axis at -6. So the equation is just x equals -6. Okay. All right, look over this page. We have 1 through 9. Do you have any questions about how to find the slope from a graph? Okay, tonight on your homework, you're going to have 10 problems where you have to find the slope from a graph. You do not have to find B. You do not have to write an equation. The only thing you have to do tonight is find the slope from a graph. So the only part that you'll have to do tonight is find rise over run. And that's it in simplest form. Leave it as a fraction or make it a whole number. Okay? So if you forget how to do the graphing part, what can you look back at?
Video.
This page of notes. Okay? All right, so now we're going to move on to finding slope giving 2 points. Saying, what if we don't have a graph? What are we going to do? Okay? So this page is going to be 51. The page that we just finished was 50, and this is 51. If you're watching the video, then this is the points that goes along with finding slope given 2 points. All right, the first 2 examples on here are a continuation from what we just did. But these graphs are a little different. On the previous graphs that we looked at, they gave us the full coordinate plane. They showed us quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. We got kind of the zoomed out view of our lines. Sometimes the lines would go this way, or sometimes the lines would go this way, or sometimes we had a line going vertically or horizontally, but they somehow always showed us all the quadrants. In this example that we're looking at now, they're only giving you quadrant 1. They're only giving you this part of the graph. You'll notice that this is your x-axis and this is your y-axis. So they're only showing you from here to here, and they're not giving you any of this. Okay? You're still going to use the same steps. So that's why I wanted to go over a couple of these examples of finding slope on a graph when you can only see one quadrant. Okay? We're still going to use the same thing. Part 1 says find the slope. So we're looking for M, which is rise over run. So they give us 2 points, and we're going to do the same thing. But we got to be careful on this example because our scale is different here. This right here goes from 0 to 2. In between 0 and 2 is 1. And in between 2 and 4 is 3. And in between 4 and 6 we would have 5. And in between 6 and 8 we'd have 7. So we want to fill in any of those. So go ahead and do that on your paper. Yep, you can put a 9 there. All right, and then notice your y-axis. It doesn't go up 1, 2, 3, 4 like the ones that we just did. This goes from 0 to 50, and there's one missing in between. So what would go here? 25. So it goes 0 to 25 plus another 25 gives you 50. Plus another 25 should be 75. Plus 25 is 100. Plus another 25 would be 125. Plus another 25 is 150. 175. Good. All right, so when we do our rise and we're run on this one, it's not going to be rise 1, 2, 3. It's going to be rise by 25 each time, okay? So we're going to start at this point, and we want to get to this point. So we're going to rise 1 block. How many value is that? 25. You don't go out here. We rose 1 block from 50 to 75. We rise 25. Now we're going to rise another block, so that's another 25. So how many have we rise from up 2 blocks total? 50. Rise another 25, so that makes 75. And rise another block, so that makes 100. We rose 4 blocks, so that makes 100. Now we're going to run 1 block, 2 block, 3 block, 4 block. And these did go by ones. 1, 2, 3, 4. So rise 100, run 4. That would be our slope. We want to simplify that. 4 goes into 100 25 times, and 4 goes into 4 1 time. And 25 divided by 1 is just 25. So the slope of this line between these 2 points is 25 over 1. Now let's find the B. Find your y-axis, and it crosses right here, which is 0. We're ready to write our equation. We know our formula is y equals mx plus b. So, m, we got 25 over 1, so just 25x. And our plus b would be plus 0. In algebra, we just leave our equation as y equals 25x. What does it mean in this situation? This is a new question that comes along with these types of graphs. All right, so we got to go back to the top. It says the graph shows the number of soda bottles a machine can make over time. The graph is titled the number of soda bottles made. The x values that we were going over 1 each time, this is the time in minutes. The y values, when we did our rise, represents the number of soda bottles that are made. When we found our slope, we got 25 over 1. Okay? So we want to use these numbers and explain what that means. What does 25 over 1 mean? Well, we know we have time in minutes, and we know we have number of soda bottles. So does the 25 go with time in minutes, or does it go with the number of soda bottles? The number of soda bottles. So 25 soda bottles can be made in 1 minute. Time would go with the minutes. I'm sorry, the 1 would go with the minutes. So we would write that. 25 soda bottles made in 1 minute, or per 1 minute. I like per better, so I'm going to change this to per. Per 1 minute. Because that kind of sounds what we're used to. That's your unit rate. Last year you did unit rates. You said, oh, well, if you can go 50 bottles in 2 minutes, what's your unit rate? Oh, that's 25 in 1 minute. So it's just kind of applying what you know. Let's do another one. The next one's very similar. It only gives you quadrant 1. We're going to use the point 1, 64, and 2, 128. And we're going to find our slope and write our equation again. So once again, we're looking for m, which is our rise over run. That's what we use when we're given a graph. This one also goes by ones. Okay? But from 64 to 128, we're going to do rise 2 blocks. Oh, we need to figure out how much we just did a rise. From 64 to 128. How could I do that? Well, what's between 0 and 64? 32. So from 32 to 64, we added another 32. From 32 up would be 96. And 96 plus 32 would be 128. Okay, so it's going up by 32 each time. So it goes up by 32 and then up by another 32. So we just rose 64. Now we're going to run 1, 2. So from here to here is how much we ran. So this goes a half and then a half, because this is 0.5, and this would be 1.5, and this would be 2.5. So we ran 2 blocks, so a half and a half, that makes 1. So the slope for this one is 64, rise 64, run 1. Okay? That's simplified to just 64. And our B is again 0. It crosses the graph at 0. So our equation is y equals 64x, and we don't need to write plus 0. Very similar. But this time we're relating it to a new situation. This one says the graph shows the speed of a car. This time our x is time in hours, and the y values are your distance in miles. Is the 64 over 1, is the 64 going to relate to the miles or to the time in hours? Miles. So we would write 64 miles per 1 hour is the car speed. Or the car speed is 64 miles per 1 hour. All right, you should have this all filled in and written down. Any questions on how to do the ones that they give you a graph that only shows you quadrant 1? You still use rise over run anytime you have a graph, okay? All right, now what do we do if we don't have a graph? So this is the bottom part. It says on your paper, what is the slope of the line that passes through the point 4, 7 and the point 9, 15. So they're telling us, what if you have a quadrant plane and you have the point 4, 7, so that would be right 4, up 7. Everyone remember how to plot points? And the point 9, 15, right 9, up 15. What would the slope of that line be? But wait, we don't have a graph. They're wanting us to do it without a graph. So we're going to learn how to do it algebraically, where we don't even need a graph. Okay? And we do that by using this formula. On your paper, it's in the box at the bottom. Go ahead and next to it put m equals. This is another way we write slope. If we're given a graph, we do rise over run. If we're not given a graph, but they give us 2 points, we use this formula, y sub 2 minus y sub 1 divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. All right, now notice I'm saying sub, not meaning exponent. If these were exponents, the 2 would be up here in the corner of the y and the 1 would be up here. But these are at the bottom, kind of like what you've been doing in science. Do you remember the sub on the science? The subscript. Okay? So this is the second y value subtracted from the first y value divided by the second x value subtracted from the first x value. So the first thing we want to do, step 1, is always label each point. Okay? Very important. So, on your paper, in that first sentence, it says, what is blah, 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 blah. We're going to label these as this is x value 1. Remember, in an ordered pair, your values are always given as an x, comma, and then a y. So this is your x1, and this will be your y1. Label it on your paper, right above them. All right? The 9 is going to be the second x value, or x sub 2. And the 15 is going to be our y sub 2. So now we have them labeled. We're ready to plug them into our formula. Go ahead and make your minus signs and your fraction bar. This kind of helps us to make sure we don't forget any negatives involved. And this example doesn't have any, but we'll see some in a few where we will have negatives. Okay? So I like to always do my fraction bar, my 2 minus signs, and have them ready. Now I'm going to look at the formula, and I'm going to find the values that relate. So my y sub 2 goes in the top left-hand corner. My y sub 2 value is 15. So right here, I need to write my 15. And I like to cross it out to show that I've already used it. In the top right-hand corner goes my y sub 1. My y sub 1 value is 7. So 7 goes there. In the bottom left, I need my x sub 2 value. My x sub 2 value is 9. So 9 goes here. And in the bottom right is my x1 value, x sub 1, which is 4. So my 4 goes here. Now I've used all 4 of my numbers in the correct order. If you accidentally put the wrong number in the wrong spot, you won't get the correct slope. It will be wrong. So always remember x1, y1, x2, y2, and then carefully plug into your formula. Okay? Now we want to calculate. We want to simplify this. We look at the fraction as a grouping symbol. You got to simplify the top, then you got to simplify the bottom before you can divide. So what's 15 minus 7? And use your calculator. Remember, we get to use the calculator, so always do that. And 15 minus 7 is 8. On bottom, what's 9 minus 4? 5. Now look at your fraction and see if you can simplify it. Can 8 be divided by 5 and get a whole number? No. All right, can we simplify it? Is there a number that goes into 8 and 5 that will make this a smaller fraction? No. So this is in simplest form. The slope of a line that passes through the point 4, 7, and 9, 15 is 8/5. 8 over 5. Rise 8, run 5. Rise 8, run 5. Okay? Let's do some more. Here we go. Example 1. Flip your paper over. Hold up. We need a formula. Back here on the back, your formula isn't written. So the first thing I want you guys to do is let's write our formula so we don't have to keep flipping back and forth. If you want to write it at the bottom where there's more space, you can. If you want to write it at the top, okay. But our formula is y sub 2 minus y sub 1 divided by, you need your division bar, x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Make sure you write this on your paper so that you can refer to it. This is your slope. So if you want to put equals m, you can. If you already know that that's what it equals, awesome. I'm going to move that back a little bit so I have more room. All right, so here's the fraction bar. I'm going to go ahead and put my minus signs. I'm going to go ahead and label x value 1, y value 1, x value 2, y value 2. Now I'm ready to plug in my formula. So first I want to find my y2 value. My y2 is this 5, so a 5 goes here. Next is my y sub 1 value. My y sub 1 is a positive 1, so that goes here. Bottom left, x sub 2 is 7, so 7 goes here. Minus my x sub 1, and my x sub 1 is 5, so 5 goes here. Now I'm ready to simplify. It is subtraction. Use your calculator. This one's an easy one. What's 5 minus 1? 4. Good. And 7 minus 5? 2. Let's simplify further. Can we divide 4 by 2? What do we get? 2. Or you could say 2 goes into 4 twice, and 2 goes into 2 1, and now 2 divided by 1 is 2. Either way, we get the whole number 2. So the slope of a line that passes through the point 5, 1 and 7, 5 is 2. Are there any questions yet? All right, let's look at the next one. This one has negatives in it. So when we're writing our numbers, we have to take those with the numbers. They're part of the number. And there's already minus signs in there, so we might have to use some of our integer rules. If you have your calculator, I highly suggest using it. All right, first let's label. This is our x1. This is our y1. x2, and this is our y2. We want our division bar and our minus signs. All right, our formula is y2. y2 is 9, so a 9 goes here. Minus y sub 1. y sub 1 is 3, so a 3 goes here. All right, on bottom we're going to have x sub 2, because here's our formula. X sub 2 is negative 2, minus x sub 1, negative 8. Oop, stray mark. Negative 8. Oh, look, notice there was already a minus sign, but this is a negative 8, so you have to write the negative with the 8. Okay? Now let's simplify. Top, what's 9 minus 3? 6. Good. On bottom, negative 2 minus negative 8. Using your calculator, you would do a negative symbol, that's the one that's right next to the decimal, 2, then the minus sign, then the negative sign, and 8 is what you would enter. If you don't have your calculator, we want to make sure that we use keep, change, change. Keep, change, change. And now it's negative 2 plus 8. Different signs subtract. 8 minus 2 is 6. Keep the sign of the bigger number. The bigger is positive, so it's a positive 6. And now we're ready to simplify further. And 6 divided by 6 is 1. Any questions on that one? If you have your calculator, it makes all that process a lot easier. All right, let's do number 3. Step 1, label x1, y1, x2, y2. We have our fraction bar and our minus signs. Now we're ready to just put a number here, 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 and here. Okay? We can't just put them any way we want. We got to use them in the orders from our formula. Abby, you with me? Here we go. Y sub 2. Y sub 2 is negative 7. So right here is going to go my negative 7. All right. Top right is your y sub 1. Y sub 1 is a negative 4. So right here I need to write negative 4. On the bottom, my x sub 2 is negative 2. And my x sub 1 is a positive 1. Now, I didn't check them off that time. If that's a strategy because you want to make sure that you don't, then you need to keep doing that. Okay? First I did negative 7, then I did negative 4, then I did negative 2, then I did positive 1. It's just a strategy to help you keep the numbers and make sure that you don't accidentally use the same one. Okay? All right, let's use our rules. Keep, change, change. Negative 7 plus 4. Subtract 7 minus 4 is 3. Take the sign of the bigger number, negative, so negative 3. Good. Keep, change, change. So this becomes a positive, and this becomes a negative 1. Same signs, add and keep. 2 plus 1 is 3. Keep the negative. If you use a calculator, it does all that for you. Simplify further. Negative 3 divided by negative 3 is a positive 1 because a 3 divided by 3 is 1, and a negative divided by negative is a positive. Always, always check your answers with your calculator. Okay? It's not worth missing over, especially if you get to use one. All right, any questions so far? We're going to now see a couple of our special cases. Here we go, number 4. We're labeling again. X1, Y1, X2, Y2. Always, always do your labels. It helps you to remember what goes where. Make sure you're writing the problems. All right, here we go. Go ahead and put my fraction bar and my minus signs. Now, my formula tells me I need my y2 value. My y2 value is 8, so 8 goes here. Minus my y sub 1 value. Y sub 1, 3, so 3 goes here. Now I need my x2 value for the bottom left, so that's a 7. And my x1 value is also a 7, so it's going to be 7 minus 7. Okay, so let's simplify. What's 8 minus 3? 5 on top. And what's 7 minus 7? A 0. In your calculator, go ahead and press 5 divided by 0. And what does it give you? Divide by 0, error. And we remember earlier that we talked about 0, and it's under the bar. So the answer is undefined. If 0 is under the bar, if 0 is on bottom, 0 is under, it's undefined. That's kind of a shortcut to help you remember. So the slope of a line that goes through 7, 3, and 7, 8 is undefined. What kind of a line is this going to be if it has an undefined slope? It's going to be a vertical line. It's going to be somewhere like, oh, and it's positive 5, so it's going to go through over here at positive 5. Not the best little graph. Okay, let's do another one. This is x1. This is y1. This is x2. This is y2. Go ahead and try this one by yourself. Everyone's working this one? All right. Y sub 2 is a positive 1. Y sub 1 is also a positive 1. X sub 2 goes here, so that's negative 3. And x sub 1 is a negative 8, so it goes here. What's 1 minus 1 on the top? 0. And negative 3 minus negative 8. Keep, change, change. Negative 3 plus 8 is 5. Whew, this one kind of looks similar to the one we just did. But this one was 5 divided by 0. 0 is on the bottom. This time it's 0 divided by 5. The 0 is on the top. All right, in your calculator you can put it. What does 0 divided by 5 give us? 0. This line has 0 as the slope. What type of lines have a 0 slope, guys? Horizontal line. So it's going to be a line going this way. Remember Mr. Slope? This line would be the mouth part. This line would be the nose part. Okay? All right, last one. This will be your x1. This will be your y1. x2, y2. Ready? We're almost finished. All right? Y sub 2 is negative 6. Y sub 1 is positive 8. X sub 2 is positive 8. And x sub 1 is negative 6. So that one was tricky because it had the same numbers flip-flopped. So you want to make sure that you're careful on that. Negative 6 minus 8. Use your calculator or keep, change, change. Negative 6 plus negative 8 is a negative 14. 8 minus negative 6, keep, change, change. 8 plus 6 is a positive 14. Now we need to divide. A negative 14 divided by a positive 14 is a negative 1. And your calculator does all that for you. So the slope of the line that passes through these 2 points is negative 1. Are there any questions on using the formula? Just remember to always label x1, y1, x2, y2, and then to always plug them in this order. Okay? Now we're going to look at your assignment that practices both of these terms. This is going to be 52. And we're going to make sure that you understand what to do on both parts before you leave, before you practice on your own. If you forget either part, you look back to both notes pages that we just completed just now. There's two of them. The first one's for rise over run, and the second one is for using this formula. All right, so let's take a look here. On the top, it says find the slope through each pair of points. So for numbers 1 through 12, for number 1 through 12, you're going to use your slope formula, y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. I suggest writing that on your paper now so that you remember that for 1 through 12, you're going to be using this formula. And you always want to label your x1, your y1, your x2, and then your y2 on your points so that you don't forget. Okay? All right. Any questions about the top part? That's just the formula. All right. We're almost done. Give me just a second. Now on the bottom part, for number 13 through 22, they give you a graph and they want you to find the slope. To find slope from a graph, you're going to use rise over run. You do not need to use the formula. You need to find B. You do not need to write an equation. The only thing I need you to do for here is calculate your rise and then your run and write what M equals. So I should see just your little rise and run triangle and then your slope as a fraction or a whole number here. Okay? For 13 through 22. Do you have any questions? All right, great job, you guys.